a recipe for lentil soup, which is cheap and easy and delicious. Recipe straightforward. 350 grams of onion, which I've peeled and chopped. That's 350 grams of the onion before I peeled it and chopped it. So I've chopped it quite finely because the lentil is going to take, not quite finely, that's like a medium chop, if I'm really honest with things, because the lentil is going to take about 25 to 30 minutes to cook. There's 250 grams of lentils. I had to think about it for a second. Yeah, there's 250 grams of lentils. Generally, when lentils and beans are dried out, when you cook them or soak them, they double in size. So, working on the ratio of my other soups that I make, which is if I was to soak these lentils, you don't need to soak lentils, but you do need to soak beans, and they're going to double in size. So, we're going to get, once they're cooked, there'll be like 500 grams worth of cooked lentils, if that makes sense. It does to me. So there's 350 grams of chopped onions, 250 grams of lentils, and then I've got 500 millilitres of, I'm using fresh stock because I've got fresh stock in, and there's no salt in it, so it's like an unseasoned stock. The danger is when you're cooking lentils and beans, if there is any kind of salt while you're cooking them, it toughens them up and they take a lot longer to cook. So we don't put any salt in when we're cooking beans or lentils or anything like that. So onions chopped in. We're not going to saute off the onions. It seems a little bit pointless because they're going to cook in the same time as the onions are. So stock in the pan. I should have got a lid out. I haven't got a lid. That's fine. So stock in the pan, lentils in the pan, and then we're going to turn up the heat, bring it up to the boil, and then it's going to be a slow simmer for 25-30 minutes, and then we're going to puree it. We'll give it a taste, we'll puree it, we'll see if it needs any more stock cubes, because we'll use stock cubes as a seasoning, so you don't need to kind of like mess around with putting salt in or anything like that. They're also going to add a richness as well. If I wasn't using my own fresh stock, what I would use is I would use water, and I know that for that kind of liquid that's going to make that kind of amount of soup, we'd need 3 stock cubes to make it taste really good. And then at the end, when it's all perfectly seasoned, it's not perfectly seasoned, when it's a good consistency and the stock's being added into it, we're going to puree in the milk. There's no point putting in the milk now because it's you just kind of, we're going to lose the kind of creaminess of the milk. It's full fat milk as always. I can't see the point in using semi-skimmed milk when it's the same price. You might as well use full fat stuff, which is creamier and got a nicer taste to it. So lid on, because we're not bothered about the colour, losing the colour of the lentils. So up to the boil, and then a really slow simmer until they're tender, and then we can puree them with the hand blender easily. So that's the stage, but we'll come back to it. You don't need to see what they look like when they're coming up to the boil or anything like that. That's a little bit boring. And so you know what a boil is, and you know what a slow simmer is. And so that's it. We'll be back when they are completely tender, and then we'll finish off the soup. And I'll work out how much it costs. I really should have done that before we start. But yeah, I'll work out what it costs. But I can imagine we're talking pence per portion as well. I'm not 100% sure on the liquid as well, so we might need to add a little bit more liquid. Like I did with the carrot soup needed a little bit more liquid to kind of thin it down a little bit, whereas the peas needed less liquid. So we might need to add a little bit more water, but we will adjust accordingly. Right, the lentils are now cooked and tender. They might need some. We might need to put some more liquid in, apart from the milk that we're going to add. So we'll give it a bit of puree, and then we'll give it a bit of a taste, and then we'll see how we go. So the onions are mostly juice, or mostly liquid anyway. So we'll kind of see how we go. Add the milk, add the stock cubes. Might need to add some more water, but oh yeah. So worked it out. It's going to cost 95p for whatever we make, so we'll probably end up making maybe 1.3 litres. That's cheap, is that? That's cheap. I mean, it's a like greeny brown sludge. It's you know, not the most appetizing of colours, but it is going to be delicious. Right, so that certainly needs 2 stock cubes in. Certainly needs 2. So we'll just crumble those in, and then we'll blitz those in, which is just an easy way of mixing them in. That and that. Right, so another taste. Much nicer. So 125 millilitres of milk. I'm sure that'll be enough. And what you see now is it was kind of quite chunky and it was kind of quite thick. Because we're adding more liquid, it'll puree down a lot smoother. Certainly needs more liquid in. So I've got some boiling liquid. I've got 200 millilitres. We'll put in 100, and we'll see how we go. That certainly wants 200 millilitres of liquid in. As you can see, I'm winging it as always. That's a little bit too thick for my taste, so I've got some more boiling water, so I reckon another 100 millilitres. Weigh it out, so make out that I'm being all scientific. So that's another 100 millilitres. There we go, that's the kind of consistency we want. Maybe half a stock cube. Maybe half a stock cube. Maybe a full stock cube. We'll go for the bigger half. Maybe a little bit more water as well. I think a little bit more water. I think another 100 millilitres of water. So that'd be 400 in all that we needed to add. And we might need the rest of that stock cube. That's a much better consistency. Toast again. Certainly needs that stock cube. Well, doesn't need it. Everything all depends on how you want things to taste. But it certainly does need, even though I use fresh stock, it needs 3 stock cubes. So I think if I hadn't have used that stock, I would have had to use 4 stock cubes in that. Which you kind of go, that seems quite a bit. But we added an extra 400 millilitres of liquid, which is we're probably going to be bumping nearly like 2 litres worth of stock here, which is brilliant for 95p. Hang on. taste. There we go, spot on. So, get rid of that. I bang it on my, don't bang plastic on the side of metal, you're just going to crack the plastic. So bang it in your hand, just to get rid of the soup there. And then we'll pour it into the measuring jug and we'll see how much we've got. I reckon about 2 litres. No, not 2 litres. Now I've got something to scrape out with. No, I'm using it for other things. So there's a little bit left in the pan there, maybe 25 millilitres. But we have got way off 2 litres. We have got 1.45 litres. So we'll write that on. Need to write that down before I forget. 1.45 litres. We need an extra 400 millilitres water. So I will. That's really cheap. So what we're looking at, we're probably looking at 6 really good sized portions there. So we're looking at 12, 13 pence portion, something like that. No, slightly a little bit more. So we're looking at about 16 pence a portion, which is really, really, really cheap and delicious. Certainly, and something that you should have kind of in your cupboard. Dried lentils or beans, stock cubes, milk. I always think you should have it, unless you've got lactose intolerant. But milk and then onions are one of those staples. So that is a delicious soup. 1.45 litres for 95 pence. That's really cheap, is that? But there you go.